Good afternoon, everyone. As you mentioned that my name is Arun Agrawal. I'm from the Office of Bioequivalence within OGD. I'll be talking about our experiences from Post-Complete Response Letter Scientific Meeting in GDUFA III. And in my presentation, I will be using the acronym either CRL or CR for Post-Complete Response Letter. You probably can read my disclaimer at the bottom of the slide. Oops. Okay, thanks. So I got two learning objectives. The very first one is the overview of post-CR scientific meetings for the GDUFA III Commitment Letter. And the second one is learn when and how to utilize Post-CRSMRs to support generic drug development. This is the brief outline of my presentation. I will briefly go over the GDUFA III Commitment Letter, grant scenarios for when FDA deems it can grant the meeting request, what are complex generic products. Then I will switch gears and analyze the whatsoever post-CRSMRs we have received so far in GDUFA III. Some case studies, common reasons for meeting request denial, what are the expectations of the agency from the applicant for this meeting package, and going over the summary or take-home message. So within the commitment letter, these are the three options, common options given over there for engaging FDA after the issuance of a complete response letter. The very first one is post-CRL clarification meeting requests to seek clarification concerning deficiencies identified in the CRL. The second one is control correspondence, which you have also heard a lot of times. This is to seek regulatory and or scientific advice after issuance of a CRL. The third one, which is the topic of my talk, is post-CRL scientific meeting requests to request scientific advice on possible approaches to address deficiencies identified in a CRL related to establishing bioequivalence or equivalence. These are the grant scenarios when FDA will grant the meeting request. FDA will grant the post-CRSMRs if the following criteria are met. It is for complex generic product, or in FDA's judgment, the request relates issues that are best addressed via post-CRSMR and cannot be adequately addressed by a control correspondence. And these are and relates to one or more of the following. A new equivalence study needed to address the deficiencies in the design identified in the CRL. Next is an approach that is different from that submitted in the ANDA, like a change in the study type, such as from in vivo study to in vitro study. A new comparative use human factor study, or a new approach to demonstrate sameness for a complex active ingredient or API. I have already mentioned this one. For post-CR scientific meeting requests, provides an applicant scientific and possible approaches to address deficiencies identified in a CRL to establish equivalence. So what are complex generic products? Complex generic products generally include complex API, complex formulation, complex route of delivery, complex dosage forms, complex drug device combination products, and in some cases other products where complexity or uncertainty concerning the approval pathway or possible alternative approach would benefit from early scientific engagement with the agency. Now I'm switching gears and just give you a little bit of the analysis of how many post-CRSMRs we have received so far in GDUFA III. As you remember, October 1st of 2022, GDUFA III started. So in October, we had only 3 months, October, November, December. We received 5 meeting requests in 23 and 24, 19 and 17 respectively. So in all, we received 41 meeting requests. Based on the criteria of commitment letter, as was mentioned previously, out of 41 submitted post-meeting requests, 29 were submitted within the criteria of the commitment letter, and 12 were submitted beyond the criteria of the commitment letter. Again, out of 41, 36 were for complex drug products, whereas 5 were for non-complex products. So it's not that post-CR scientific meetings can only be submitted for complex product. Depending on the scenario, it can be for a non-complex product also. Regarding the complex product category, 15 were received for complex active ingredient, or 15 contained questions related to complex API. 14 were related to drug device combination, 11 for complex route of delivery, and 7 each for complex formulation and complex dosage form. As far as route of administration, 13 were for IV route, 8 for oral route, 7 each for topical and inhalation routes, 3 for transdermal delivery system or TDS, and 3 were for others, just like nasal inhalation products and others. So out of 41 meeting requests submitted, for complex products, 7 were denied, 29 were accepted or granted. For non-complex product, out of 5, 3 were denied and 2 were granted. So in all, 10 meeting requests out of 41 were denied. And out of those 10 meeting requests which were denied, 6 were recommended to submit control correspondence depending on the scenario of the questions therein. Regarding the meeting format, 16 of them requests were for written response, 8 for video conference, 5 for face-to-face meeting or in-person meeting, and 2 were for TCON meetings. Out of granted meeting requests, 12 were for new bioequivalence or BE studies, 10 were for alternative BE approach, 7 for new approach to demonstrate sameness of the complex API, and 9 were for other complex issues such as modeling, simulation, others. As far as discipline is concerned, 29 of those meeting requests had questions related to bioequivalence, and 13 were related to product quality. So now I'm going over some of the examples or case examples that we have seen. Of course, because of disclosure research, these are very abbreviated ones, so we cannot go into the details. The very first example is for oral immediate release tablets, which is a non-complex product. As I mentioned before, that it does not need to be a complex product, but if you have a complex issue, where in this scenario it was, so it was granted. And the questions were questions related to in vitro study design. Next one was for oral immediate release powder, which was a complex drug product with complex API, and questions related to establishment of maximum binding or showing attainment of plateau in the in vitro equilibrium binding studies. Next one is oral extended release tablets, which is a non-complex product, but the applicant suggested an alternative BE approach. So applicant was requested to reformulate the test product and conduct new in vivo BE studies due to pharmacokinetic or PK issues. The applicant instead proposed a population PK modeling or PK modeling approach to address the issues identified by the FDA. Next one is an intravenous injectable product, which is a complex drug product, and an alternative approach was suggested. The applicant proposed an alternative approach for statistical evaluation of the PKBE data. This slide contains 3 examples for topical drug products, which are complex products, complex dosage forms, and route of delivery. The first one is that PSD recommends conducting an in vivo BE study with clinical endpoints. However, the applicant suggested or proposed a characterization-based approach, characterization-based in vitro approach for establishing bioequivalence. In next case, the applicant proposed physiologically based pharmacokinetic or PBPK modeling in lieu of in vitro permeation testing or IVPT. In third case, applicant provided justification that IVPT is not suitable for establishing bioequivalence for this one particular drug product. This slide represents 3 case scenarios for inhalation drug products, which are complex drug products and complex drug device combinations. The first one is applicant proposed new pivotal in vitro BE studies from batches manufactured at an alternate manufacturing site to bridge with batches manufactured at the original site. In next example, the applicant proposed in silico models to support realistic aerodynamic particle size distribution or RAPSD testing. In third example, the applicant proposed a statistical approach other than the population BE or PBE to evaluate RAPSD data. This slide is very important. What are the common reasons for meeting denial? The very first example, we have seen is incomplete meeting package. Next is product does not meet the criteria for a complex product. The meeting request does not meet one or more of the criteria per the commitment letter, as previously mentioned. In FDA's judgment, the request raises issues that can be adequately addressed through a control correspondence. Submitted questions are considered as a review issue or response to CRL deficiency. So just wanted to highlight, this is not the meeting request to address the CRL questions or the deficiencies. This is for scientific advice. So submit an information needs pre-review of new data or in vivo BE study protocol. Again, these are not the part of this meeting request. What are the expectations for the meeting package? The cover letter should clearly identify that it is a post-complete response letter scientific meeting request. Clearly state if it is a complex, non-complex drug product, and include any rationale or justification for why the product meets the criteria for a complex product if applicable. Clearly state which of the criteria, as mentioned previously, relating to establishing equivalence, the meeting request is focusing on. Clearly state the requested meeting format, whether you would like to have a face-to-face meeting, video conference, or a written response. Specify approaches to address CRL deficiencies grouped by discipline with data to support the discussion. And discipline means here, I mean, whether your questions or your concerns are related to bioequivalence or the product quality. Those are the 2 major reasons we have seen that. So this is the summary slide or the take-home message, I will say. Post-CRL scientific meeting requests are for requesting scientific advice on possible approaches to address deficiencies identified in CRL related to establishing equivalence. Applicants should clearly specify the commitment letter criteria that justify their meeting request, along with the requested meeting format, whether face-to-face, in person, or it's a video conference, or it is or TCON. To effectively leverage post-CR scientific meeting requests, the applicant should be mindful to avoid common reasons for meeting request denials discussed in this presentation. And I would like to thank all the people mentioned in this slide, along with all the assessors and project managers within the Office of Bioequivalence. Thanks for your attention. And I will hand over now to Onika, if I am not. Thank you.